They called him the Butcher of Brooklyn. Leonardo Moretti didn't have a heart. He buried it 6 feet under with his wife. But on a rainy Tuesday, behind the closed doors of his fortress, the most feared man in the city walked into his nursery and saw something that froze his blood. The quiet, invisible maid was doing the unthinkable with his newborn heir. What happened in the next 5 seconds didn't just change the underworld. It started a war. You think you know Mafia romances? You have no idea. This is the true story of the Silent Vow. The rain in Chicago doesn't wash things clean. It just makes the grime slicker. Leonardo Moretti stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse office, the glass reflecting a man who looked less like a human being and more like a statue carved from grief and granite. At 34, Leonardo was the don of the Moretti crime family, a sprawling empire that ran everything from the docks on Lake Michigan to the high-stakes poker rings in the Loop. He had money that could burn a hole in the Federal Reserve and power that made senators stutter. But right now, the only thing Leonardo Moretti possessed was a headache that felt like a drill press and a son he couldn't stop from crying. The sound of the baby's wails drifted down the grand spiral staircase, ghosting through the heavy oak doors of his study. It had been 3 months. 3 months since the car bomb that took Isabella, his wife. 3 months since the doctors had performed the emergency C-section that saved Leonardo his son, but left Leonardo a widower. "Boss?" A gravelly voice broke the silence. Leonardo didn't turn. He knew it was Salvatore Sal Tessio, his consigliere and right-hand man. Sal was old-school pinstripe cigars and a belief that emotions were a liability. "What is it?" "Sal." Leonardo's voice was a low rumble, devoid of inflection. "The shipment from the Rossi family. It's light. Again." Sal stepped further into the room, placing a ledger on the mahogany desk. "Dante Rossi is testing you, Ardo. He thinks because you're preoccupied that the wolf has lost its teeth." Leonardo finally turned. His eyes were dark, rimmed with the red exhaustion of insomnia. "Dante Rossi is a bottom feeder. Send a message. Burn his warehouse in the South Side, the one where he keeps the import cars." Sal hesitated. "With respect, boss, we start a war now. With the baby. With the household in chaos." "The household is fine." Leonardo snapped the first crack in his armor, showing. "Is it?" Sal gestured toward the ceiling where the faint crying persisted. "The nannies are quitting, Ardo. That's the 3rd one this week. Mrs. Higgins walked out an hour ago. She said the boy won't take the bottle. She said the house feels haunted." Leonardo walked to his desk and poured a glass of amber scotch, drinking it neat. "Get another nanny. Pay them double, triple, I don't care. It's not about the money. The kid is starving, Ardo. He's rejecting the formula. He needs... Do not say it." Leonardo slammed the glass down the heavy crystal, cracking the surface of the desk. "Isabella is dead. She isn't coming back to feed him. Figure it out, Sal. Or I'll find a consigliere who can." Sal nodded stiffly and left the room. Leonardo sank into his leather chair, putting his head in his hands. He was the king of the city, a man who could order a hit with a phone call, yet he was utterly powerless against a 7-pound infant who refused to eat. Leonardo hated the penthouse. It was too big, too quiet, and filled with memories of Isabella. Her scent still lingered on the curtain's vanilla and expensive jasmine. He avoided the nursery at all costs. Looking at Leo was like looking into a mirror of his own failure. The boy had Isabella's eyes. Every time Leonardo looked at him, he saw the woman he failed to protect. He checked his watch. 2:00 a.m. The crying had stopped. Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in his chest. Silence was worse than the screaming. Silence meant something was wrong. Leonardo stood up, unholstering the Beretta. 92 FS he kept strapped to his side, a habit from the streets that money hadn't erased. He moved out of the office, his footsteps silent on the plush carpet. He ascended the stairs, the shadows of the banister stretching like prison bars across the hallway. He reached the nursery door. It was slightly ajar. A soft, rhythmic sound came from inside. It wasn't crying. It was a hum, a melody, Isabella's favorite lullaby. Leonardo froze. His heart hammered against his ribs. For a split second, the rational part of his brain shut down, and he thought, "She's back." It was all a mistake. He pushed the door open with the barrel of his gun, ready to confront a ghost. But it wasn't a ghost. The room was dim, lit only by the streetlights filtering through the rain-streaked window. In the rocking chair where Isabella used to sit, sat a woman. She was small, her uniform a simple grey maid's dress, blending into the shadows. Her back was to the door. Leonardo lowered the gun slightly, confusion warring with his adrenaline. It was just one of the cleaning staff, one of the invisible people he paid to keep the marble polished and the sheets white. He didn't even know her name. "What are you doing?" Leonardo rasped, his voice sounding like grinding stones. The woman flinched violently, but she didn't stand up. She hunched over, curling her body protectively around the bundle in her arms. "I said." Leonardo stepped into the room, his anger rising. "What are you doing with my son?" He moved around the chair to face her, and what he saw stopped him dead in his tracks. His son Leonardo, the boy who had screamed for hours, the boy who had rejected every expensive formula and every highly credentialed nanny, was silent. He was latched onto the maid's breast, nursing greedily, his tiny hand clutching the fabric of her grey dress. The maid looked up. She was young, perhaps 24. Her hair was a messy brown tangle, her face pale and terrified. Her eyes were wide, shockingly blue, and filled with tears. I'm sorry, sir," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He was crying. He wouldn't stop. I couldn't bear it." Leonardo stared. He looked at the exposed skin, the milk, his son's peaceful face. It was an intimate, primal act that belonged to his dead wife. It felt like a violation. It felt like a miracle. "Who are you?" Leonardo asked, the gun now hanging loosely at his side. "Amelia," she breathed. "Amelia Clark. I clean the second floor." Leonardo looked at her chest, then at her face. "You have milk." It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. Amelia pulled the baby closer, covering herself with a trembling hand, though Leo protested the interruption with a soft whine. I lost my daughter 2 weeks ago. Stillborn." The air left the room. 2 tragedies in one room. A father with a baby and no wife. A mother with milk and no baby. "Put him down," Leonardo commanded, his voice devoid of emotion. "Sir, he's still hungry." "I said, put him down." Leonardo roared, the grief suddenly twisting into blind rage. "Get out! Get out of my house!" Amelia scrambled up hastily, adjusting her dress. She placed the fussing baby gently into the crib. She looked at Leonardo one last time, terror and pity warring in her eyes, before she ran past him, fleeing into the hallway. Leonardo stood over the crib. Leo began to cry again, a high-pitched, hungry wail that tore through the silence. Leonardo looked at his hands. They were shaking. He had just fired the only person who could calm his son. Amelia Clark ran until her lungs burned. She didn't stop at the servants' quarters. She ran straight out the back service entrance into the pouring Chicago rain, without a coat, without her purse, without her dignity. She collapsed under the awning of a closed bakery 3 blocks away, shivering violently. The cold rain mixed with the hot tears on her face. Stupid. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Why had she done it? She knew the rules. Don't look Mr. Moretti in the eye. Don't speak unless spoken to. Never enter the family wing. But the crying, it had gone on for hours. It echoed through the vents into the small room where she polished silver. It gnawed at her. Every cry felt like a physical pull on her body. Her body, which was still confused, still mourning, still producing sustenance for a child who was buried in a pauper's grave in Queens. She had lost her baby, a little girl she named Daisy, to a cord accident. Her fiancé, a mechanic named Jack, had left her the day after the funeral, unable to deal with the grief and the medical bills. She had taken the job at the Moretti estate because the pay was under the table and she needed to disappear from her old life. She knew who Leonardo Moretti was. Everyone did. He was a monster in an expensive suit. But looking at that baby, she didn't see a monster's spawn. She saw a starving, lonely child. Amelia. A black SUV pulled up to the curb, splashing water onto her ankles. The window rolled down. It was Sal Tessio. Amelia shrank back against the brick wall. "Please, I won't say anything. I swear. Just let me go." Sal looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Get in." "No. The boss wants to see you." "He fired me. He had a gun." "He also has a screaming baby," Sal said dryly. "And you seem to be the only solution. Get in the car, Amelia, unless you want to freeze to death out here." Amelia hesitated. She had nowhere to go. Her apartment rent was overdue. She had $11 in her pocket. And a treacherous part of her heart admitted she wanted to make sure the baby was okay. She opened the door and climbed into the warm leather interior. The ride back to the penthouse was silent. Sal didn't ask about what happened, and Amelia didn't offer. When they arrived, the atmosphere in the house had shifted. It was manic. Servants were scurrying around, looking terrified. The crying from upstairs was now a hoarse, exhausted, raspy sound that was painful to hear. Sal led her straight up the stairs, past the guards who looked at her with curiosity. He opened the nursery door. Leonardo was pacing the room like a quashed tiger. His tie was undone. His sleeves rolled up, revealing tattoos that wrapped around his forearms, Latin script and geometric lines. He stopped when he saw her. The rage was gone, replaced by a desperate, hollow exhaustion. "He won't eat," Leonardo said. He didn't say hello. He didn't apologize. He just gestured to the crib. Amelia stepped forward cautiously. "Mr. Moretti?" "Leonardo," he corrected, though his tone was sharp. "My name is Leonardo." "Leonardo." She tested the name. It felt dangerous in her mouth. I'm not a wet nurse. I'm a maid." "I don't care about titles." Leonardo walked over to a side table and picked up a stack of cash. It must have been $5,000. He held it out to her. "Feed him." Amelia looked at the money, then at him. "I'm not a prostitute, Mr. Moretti. You can't just buy my body." Leonardo's eyes narrowed. "I am buying a service. My son is starving. You have what he needs. This is a transaction." "It's not a transaction to me." Amelia's voice rose, surprising even herself. It's grief. I lost my baby. Doing this, it hurts. It reminds me of what I don't have." Leonardo went still. For the first time, he really looked at her. He saw the dark circles under her eyes, the trembling of her hands, the fraying hem of her dress. He recognized the look in her eyes. It was the same look he saw in the mirror every morning. He slowly lowered the money. "I know," he said quietly. "I know what it is to look at a child and see a ghost." The vulnerability in his voice disarmed her. The monster was gone. This was just a father. Amelia walked past him to the crib. She picked up Leo. He was hot, his face red and blotchy. As soon as he felt her warmth, he turned his head, rooting against her chest. She sat in the rocking chair. She looked at Leonardo. "Turn around." Leonardo didn't argue. He turned his back, facing the window and the rain. Amelia adjusted her dress and let the baby latch. The silence that descended on the room was instant and profound. It was a holy silence. "Is he eating?" Leonardo asked to the window. "Yes," Amelia whispered. Tears pricked her eyes again, but they were tears of release. Her body finally had a purpose. The pain of her fullness subsided. They stayed like that for 20 minutes. The rain, the rhythm of the baby's breathing, and the two broken adults in the room. "You stay," Leonardo said, his back still turned. "Sir, you don't clean anymore. You don't scrub floors. You live here, in the guest suite next to the nursery. You take care of Leonardo." "Mr. Moretti, I can't." 10,000 a month, he interrupted. "Full medical and privacy. No one bothers you. You answer only to me." It was a life-changing amount of money. It was safety. But it was also a trap. Living in the Moretti house. Being the Don's personal. What happens when my milk dries up?" Amelia asked softly. "When he doesn't need me anymore?" Leonardo turned around then. He looked at her holding his son. For the first time in months, the knot in his chest loosened slightly. "Then we cross that bridge," he said. "But right now you are the most important person in this organization, Amelia Clark, because you are keeping the air alive." He walked to the door. "Sal will bring your things. Welcome to the family." As the door clicked shut, Amelia looked down at Leo. He was asleep, milk-drunk and peaceful. "What have we gotten into, little one?" she whispered. She didn't know it yet, but she hadn't just accepted a job. She had walked into the center of a target. The transition from invisible maid to the most protected woman in Chicago was jarring. Amelia's new room was larger than the entire apartment she had shared with Jack. It had silk wallpaper, a bathroom with a soaking tub that looked out over the skyline, and a walk-in closet filled with clothes she hadn't bought. Sal had brought them the day after she moved in. "The boss doesn't want you wearing rags," he had said, dropping off garment bags filled with cashmere sweaters, soft cotton nursing tops and jeans that cost more than a used car. Amelia felt like an imposter. She spent her days in the nursery, rocking Leo, singing him songs she had learned from her own grandmother and pacing the floor. The baby was thriving. His cheeks were filling out, the red blotchiness fading into a creamy, healthy, pale skin. He was a beautiful child, possessing a solemnity that reminded her aching heart of his father. Leonardo was a ghost in his own home. He left before dawn and returned long after she had put Leo down for the night, but his presence was everywhere. It was in the guards stationed at the end of the hall. It was in the fresh flowers that appeared on the nursery table every morning, white lilies, Isabella's favorite. It was a week before she saw him again. It was late past midnight. Amelia was in the kitchen searching for a glass of water. She was wearing one of the silk robes Sal had provided, a pale blue thing that felt like water against her skin. She turned the corner and nearly bumped into a wall of muscle. Leonardo stood by the open refrigerator, a bottle of beer in his hand. He was shirtless. Amelia gasped and took a step back, her eyes involuntarily raking over him. He was terrifyingly fit, a map of scars and muscle. A long, jagged scar ran from his ribs to his hip bone. A knife wound, she guessed. Another bullet pucker on his shoulder. He looked like a war map. I didn't know you were home," Amelia stammered, pulling the robe tighter around her throat. Leonardo didn't move. He took a slow sip of his beer, his eyes tracking her movement. He looked exhausted, the shadows under his eyes profound. "It's my house, Amelia," he said, his voice rough with fatigue. "I'm usually here, even when you don't see me." "I just wanted water." He reached behind him, grabbed a bottle of Pellegrino, and slid it across the marble island toward her. "How is he? He's good," Amelia said, grabbing the water like a lifeline. He smiled today, a real smile, not just gas. Leonardo's expression softened just a fraction. He smiled. "Yes, I was singing to him. You are my sunshine." He looked right at me and grinned. Leonardo looked away, staring into the dark living room. "Isabella used to sing that." The name hung in the air heavy and sharp. "I can stop," Amelia said quickly. "If it's too painful." "No," Leonardo interrupted. He walked around the island, stopping just inches from her. He smelled of cigar smoke, gunpowder, and expensive soap. The scent was intoxicating and dangerous. "Keep singing it. He needs to remember her, even if I can't bear to." He reached out his hand, hovering near her face. For a moment, Amelia thought he was going to touch her cheek. Her heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She wasn't scared of him anymore. She was feeling something else entirely, something warm and magnetic that she had no business feeling for a man like him. But he pulled his hand back. "Go to bed, Amelia. It's not safe for you to be wandering down here." "Safe from what?" she asked, emboldened by the late hour. "You have guards at every door." Leonardo's dark eyes locked onto hers. "Safe from me." He turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the house. Amelia stood there, shivering in the warm kitchen, the taste of danger lingering on her tongue. The bubble of isolation popped 2 days later. Amelia was in the nursery, folding onesies when the door burst open. It wasn't Leonardo. It was a woman. She was stunning, tall with raven black hair, slicked back into a high ponytail, wearing a red power suit that screamed money. She marched into the room as if she owned it, her heels clicking sharply on the hardwood. "So," the woman sneered, looking Amelia up and down with disdain, "this is the wet nurse." Amelia stood up instinctively, placing herself between the woman and the crib. "Who are you?" "I'm Sofia Valenti," she said. flashing a smile that was all teeth. Leonardo's fiancé. Amelia felt a cold stone drop in her stomach. Fiancé Sal hadn't mentioned a fiancé. Leonardo hadn't mentioned a woman. "I didn't know," Amelia said quietly. "Of course you didn't. You're the help." Sophia walked to the crib and looked down at Leo with an expression of mild disgust. "God, he looks just like Isabella. Poor thing. Hopefully he grows out of that weak chin." She reached out a manicured hand to touch the baby's face. "Don't," Amelia said sharply. Sophia froze. She turned slowly to face Amelia. "Excuse me. Wash your hands," Amelia said, her voice shaking but firm. "He has a weak immune system. You can't touch him with street hands." Sophia laughed, a cold, brittle sound. "You think you can order me around? In my future husband's house? Listen to me, you milking cow. You are a temporary utility. Once that brat is weaned, you'll be back in the gutter where Leonardo found you. Don't get comfortable." She stepped closer, invading Amelia's personal space. "And don't look at Leonardo. I've seen the way the help looks at him. He's a king. You are dust. Remember that." "Get out!" The voice came from the doorway. It was a low growl, vibrating with menace. Leonardo stood there. He was wearing a dark suit, his face thunderous. Sophia's demeanor changed instantly. She spun around, a pout forming on her red lips. "Ardo, darling, I was just checking on the baby. This woman was being incredibly rude." Leonardo didn't look at Sophia. He looked at Amelia. He saw her pale face, her defensive posture in front of the crib. "I heard you," Leonardo said, walking into the room. He stopped in front of Sophia. "I heard what you called her." "Oh, please. It's just a joke. She's a paid employee, Ardo. Why are you so sensitive?" Sophia reached for his lapel. Leonardo caught her wrist. He didn't squeeze, but the grip was firm enough to make Sophia flinch. "There is no engagement, Sophia. There never was. Your father suggested an alliance. I declined, repeatedly." And Amelia is not the help," Leonardo continued, his voice dropping an octave. "She is the mother of my son right now. She feeds him. She comforts him. She gives him what I cannot. That makes her family. And in this house we do not insult family." Sophia yanked her hand back, her face flushing red with humiliation. "You're choosing a maid over the Valenti family." "My father will not be pleased, Leonardo. We control the unions. You need us." "I don't need anyone who disrespects my home," Leonardo snarled. "Turtle will escort you out. If you ever step foot near my son or Amelia again, I will forget that I am a gentleman." Sophia glared at Amelia with pure venom. "This isn't over," she hissed. She stormed out, brushing past Sal, who was waiting in the hallway with a stoic expression. Leonardo exhaled slowly, adjusting his cuffs. He looked at Amelia. "Are you all right?" Amelia nodded, though her knees felt weak. "She said she was your fiancé." "She is delusional. Her father, Don Valenti, is pushing for a merger. I have no interest in remarrying." "She was right, though," Amelia whispered, looking down at her hands. "I am just a temporary utility." Leonardo closed the distance between them in 2 strides. He placed a finger under her chin and tilted her head up until she was forced to look into his obsidian eyes. "You are the only real thing in this entire God-forsaken life," he said fiercely. "Do not ever let them make you feel small. You hold the future of the Moretti family in your arms. That makes you a queen, Amelia, not a servant." The intensity of his gaze burned her. For a second, the air between them crackled with unspoken tension. Then Leo stirred in the crib, letting out a soft cry. The spell broke. Leonardo stepped back, the mask of the Don sliding back into place. But Amelia saw it now. The cracks in the granite. And she knew, with terrifying certainty, that she was falling in love with the butcher of Brooklyn. 2 weeks later, the bubble burst violently. Leonardo needed his 3-month checkup. Dr. Aris, the family's private pediatrician, usually made house calls, but the specialized equipment needed for a heart murmur scan, a minor concern the doctors had flagged, was at the clinic in the Loop. Leonardo ordered a lockdown protocol. 3 cars, Leonardo barked into his phone as he paced the foyer. I want the armored SUV in the middle, decoy car in front. Sal, you drive the rear. Amelia stood by the stairs, clutching Leo in his carrier. She was wearing a simple navy dress and a trench coat. She felt ridiculous amidst the men in tactical gear holding assault rifles. Is all this necessary? She asked as Leonardo hung up. It's just a doctor's appointment. Leonardo walked over to her, checking the straps on Leo's carrier with obsessive detail. In my world, Amelia, the moment you step out that door, you are a target. Dante Rossi is still making moves. He knows I'm vulnerable. You're not vulnerable, she said softly. He looked up at her, his eyes dark. I am now. He ushered them into the middle SUV. The windows were tinted and thick bulletproof glass. Amelia sat in the back with Leo. Leonardo sat next to her, his body angled toward the window, scanning the street. His hand rested on his thigh, inches from his gun. The drive to the clinic was tense but uneventful. The city passed by in a grey blur of rain and concrete. The appointment went well. The murmur was gone. Leo was perfectly healthy. Amelia felt a weight lift off her chest. She was smiling as they exited the back of the clinic, heading toward the alley where the convoy waited. He's perfect, Amelia said to Leonardo, who was shielding her from the drizzle with a massive black umbrella. Dr. Aris said he's in the 91st percentile for height. Leonardo actually smiled, a real, genuine smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. A giant, like his father. They were 10 feet from the car when the world exploded. A van screeching down the alleyway T-boned the lead car, sending it spinning into the brick wall. Metal screamed against metal. Ambush! Sal yelled from the rear vehicle. Gunfire erupted instantly. The pop-pop-pop of automatic weapons echoed off the narrow alley walls deafeningly loud. Leonardo didn't hesitate. He didn't drop to the ground. He didn't reach for his gun, not yet. He grabbed Amelia and threw her bodily into the open door of the armored SUV, shoving her down onto the floorboards. "Stay down!" he roared, slamming the heavy door shut. "Leonardo!" Amelia screamed, clutching the car seat, shielding Leo with her own body as bullets pinged off the armored glass like hail. Outside, it was chaos. Through the window, she saw Leonardo diving behind a dumpster, his Beretta drawn. He was firing with terrifying precision. 2 men in ski masks dropped. Sal and the other guards were returning fire, creating a wall of lead between the attackers and the car. But there were too many of them. A second van blocked the alley exit. Men with assault rifles poured out. They were wearing red bandanas, Rossi soldiers. "Get them out of here!" Leonardo yelled to the driver of their SUV, a young kid named Marco. "I can't!" "Boss, we're boxed in!" Marco shouted, panic edging his voice. A bullet shattered the side mirror. Marco cursed, ducking. Amelia looked out the window. She saw a man aiming a grenade launcher, no, a modified flare gun, at the car. Leonardo saw it too. He broke cover. It was a suicide move. He sprinted across the open pavement bullets, kicking up water around his feet. He tackled the man with the flare gun, just as he pulled to the trigger. The flare went wild, spiraling into the sky. Leonardo pistol-whipped the man, 3 savage strikes that left the attacker motionless. But he was exposed. "Leonardo, look out!" Amelia screamed, though he couldn't hear her. A gunman on a fire escape took aim. Amelia didn't think. She didn't consider the bulletproof glass or the locks. She saw the man she loved, yes, loved, about to die. She scrambled up, unlocked the door, and shoved it open. "Behind you!" she shrieked. Leonardo spun around, raising his gun, and fired a single shot. The man on the fire escape tumbled down, landing with a sickening thud. But the distraction cost him. Another gunman wounded on the ground raised a pistol and fired. Leonardo jerked back, clutching his side. He fell to one knee. "No!" Amelia scrambled out of the car. "Get back in here!" Sal was screaming, laying down, suppressing fire. Amelia ran to Leonardo. He was groaning, blood seeping through his fingers, staining his white shirt crimson. "You idiot!" he wheezed, looking at her with wide, terrified eyes. "Get to the car!" "Not without you." Amelia grabbed him under the arm. She was small and he was heavy, dead weight. But adrenaline is a powerful drug. "Get up, Leonardo." "For Leo, get up." Leonardo gritted his teeth, a primal roar tearing from his throat, and forced himself up, leaning heavily on her. They stumbled back toward the SUV. Bullets whizzed past them, one tugging at the sleeve of Amelia's coat. They fell into the back seat. Sal, having abandoned the rear car, jumped into the driver's seat, shoving Marco aside. "Hang on!" Sal yelled. He threw the heavy SUV into reverse, slamming into the van behind them. The armor held. He floored it, scraping paint and metal, pushing the wreckage aside, and roared out of the alley onto the main street. They sped away, weaving through traffic, leaving the war zone behind. In the back seat, silence returned, heavy and smelling of copper. Amelia was trembling violently. She checked Leo. He was wailing, shocked by the noise, but unharmed. She turned to Leonardo. He was slumped against the door, his face grey. His hand was pressed to his abdomen, blood pulsing between his fingers. "Leonardo!" she sobbed, ripping off her scarf to press it against the wound. "You stepped out of the car," he whispered, his eyes unfocused. "I told you to stay down. You were going to die," she cried, pressing harder on the wound. "You were going to die and leave him alone." Leonardo looked at her. He reached up with a bloody hand and touched her face, smearing red on her pale cheek. "You saved me," he murmured, as if he couldn't believe it. "Why?" "Because," Amelia choked out tears, streaming down her face, mixing with his blood. "Because we need you." Leonardo's eyes fluttered shut. "Sal," Amelia screamed. "He's passing out, drive faster." Sal looked in the rearview mirror, his face grim. "I'm calling the private surgeon. We're going to the safe house. The penthouse isn't safe anymore. There's a rat. They knew our route." Amelia held Leonardo's head in her lap, stroking his hair, whispering prayers she hadn't said in years. "Don't you dare die," she whispered fiercely. "You don't get to quit. Not now." Leonardo Moretti, the butcher of Brooklyn, lay unconscious in the arms of his maid, while the city of Chicago wept rain against the windows. The war had officially begun. And Amelia was no longer a bystander. She was a combatant. The safe house wasn't a bunker. It was a fortress of glass and steel, hidden deep within the dense forests of North Illinois, 2 hours outside the city. It was designed to be invisible from the road, a modernist cube cantilevered over a rushing river. Sal drove the SUV straight into the underground garage. The metal door groaned shut behind them, sealing them in. "Get the medical kit," Sal shouted to the guards who were already stationed there. "Get Dr. Sterling on the secure line. Tell him we have a code red, abdominal wound, heavy blood loss." Amelia scrambled out of the back seat. Her dress was ruined stiff with drying blood that wasn't hers. She had Leo strapped to her chest in the carrier, his tiny body warm against her heaving heart. Leonardo was unconscious. 2 guards lifted him out of the car. He looked grey, his head lolling back, looking disturbingly like a fallen statue. "Is he?" Amelia couldn't finish the sentence. "He's alive," Sal said, checking Leonardo's pulse. "But barely. We need to get him to the infirmary. Upstairs. Now." They moved with practiced efficiency. Amelia followed her legs, trembling so hard she thought she might collapse. She was ushered into a sterile white room that looked more like an operating theatre than a bedroom. Doctor Sterling, a balding man with wire-rimmed glasses who looked like a university professor but moved like a combat medic, was already scrubbing in. He had arrived by helicopter minutes before them. "Get him on the table," Sterling barked. "Cut the shirt." Amelia stood in the corner, clutching Leo. She watched as they sliced open Leonardo's custom-tailored shirt. The wound was ugly, a dark, angry hole just above his hip. "Bullet is lodged," Sterling announced, pressing monitors to Leonardo's chest. The heart monitor began to beep a fast, erratic rhythm. "BP is dropping. 80/50. I need O negative. 2 units. Stat." "Ma'am, you need to leave," one of the guards said, gently touching Amelia's arm. "No," Amelia said. Her voice was quiet but steely. "Ma'am, this is going to get messy." "I said no." Amelia turned on him, her blue eyes blazing. "I am not leaving him. I held his blood in the car. I am not leaving him now." The guard looked at Sal. Sal gave a curt nod. "Let her stay. She's earned it." For the next 2 hours, Amelia watched the man she loved be taken apart and put back together. She saw the clamp of hemostats, the suction of blood, the metallic clink of the bullet being dropped into a metal tray. She hummed softly to Leo, keeping him calm, while her eyes never left Leonardo's face. She prayed. She bargained with a god she hadn't spoken to since her daughter died. "Take anything else," she pleaded silently. "Take the money. Take my pride. Just don't take him. Don't make Leo an orphan twice." "He's stabilizing," Dr. Sterling finally said, peeling off his bloody gloves. "The bullet missed the kidney by a millimeter. He's lucky, or he's too stubborn to die." Amelia let out a breath that was half sob. She walked over to the table. Leonardo was pale, hooked up to IVs and monitors, but the rise and fall of his chest was steady. "He needs rest," Sterling said. "He'll be out for at least 12 hours. I've given him a heavy sedative." Sal ushered the doctor out to debrief. The room quieted, leaving only the hum of the machines and the sound of the river rushing outside. Amelia pulled a chair next to the bed. She unstrapped Leo and nursed him there in the quiet aftermath of violence. "Look at your daddy, Leo," she whispered, stroking the baby's soft hair. "He fought for us. He's a warrior." Leonardo didn't wake up that night, or the next morning. Amelia didn't sleep. She paced the room. She washed her face in the ensuite bathroom, borrowing one of Leonardo's clean t-shirts from the closet Sal had stocked. It hung to her knees, smelling of cedar and him. Around noon on the second day, a fever set in. Leonardo began to thrash. His skin burned to the touch. He mumbled in Italian words thick with delirium. Isabella. No. The car. Stop the car. Amelia wrung out a cold cloth and pressed it to his forehead. Shh, Leonardo. It's okay. You're safe. He grabbed her wrist. His grip was surprisingly strong, his eyes flying open. But he wasn't seeing her. He was seeing ghosts. Don't leave me, he rasped, his eyes wild and glassy. Everyone leaves. Don't go into the dark. I'm not going anywhere, Amelia promised, leaning close, brushing the damp hair from his forehead. I'm right here. I'm staying. Amelia. His voice cracked. Recognition flickered in the haze of fever. Yes, it's Amelia. The baby. He's sleeping. He's safe. Leonardo let out a shuddering breath. He pulled her hand down, pressing it against his chest, right over his beating heart. You, in the car, you saved me. You saved us first. Why? He asked again, the question haunting him even in his delirium. I am a bad man. I have done terrible things. I don't see a bad man, Amelia whispered, her thumb stroking the back of his hand. I see a father. I see the man who gave me a home when I had nothing. Leonardo looked at her, really looked at her, through the pain and the fever. I think, he murmured, his eyelids drooping as the sedative pulled him back under. I think I could be good for you. He passed out again, but he didn't let go of her hand. Amelia sat there as the sun went down, turning the glass walls into mirrors reflecting the two of them. The king and the maid, bound together by blood and secrets. 3 days later, Leonardo was sitting up. He was weak, his movement restricted by the bandages wrapped tightly around his torso, but the fever had broken. The sharp, calculating intelligence was back in his eyes. He sat at the kitchen island of the safe house, reviewing security footage on a tablet. Amelia was cooking eggs at the stove. It was a domestic scene that felt bizarrely normal considering the circumstances. The leak came from the transport team, Leonardo said, his voice gravelly but strong. He pushed the tablet away in frustration. Only 4 people knew the route. Me, Sal, the driver, and the dispatcher. Sal would never betray you, Amelia said, flipping an egg. She didn't turn around. He looks at you like a son. In this life, Amelia's sons kill fathers for a crown. Caesar and Brutus. It's the history of the world. Sal isn't Brutus, she insisted, plating the food and setting it before him. Eat. Dr. Sterling said you need protein. Leonardo looked at the eggs, then at her. She was wearing jeans and a soft grey sweater, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked tired but resilient. The fear that had defined her when they first met was gone, replaced by a quiet strength that he found utterly captivating. You've become bossy, he noted, picking up a fork. Someone has to be. You're a terrible patient. I'm a terrible everything, he muttered. He took a bite, then paused. Amelia. Yes. Thank you. She froze. For the eggs. For staying. Sal told me you refused to leave the room during the surgery. He told me you slept in the chair for 3 nights. Amelia blushed, turning back to the sink to hide her face. I didn't want Leo to be alone if If something happened... Leo has a nursery down the hall. You weren't staying for Leo. Leonardo stood up. He moved slowly, wincing slightly, but he walked over to her. He turned her around to face him. The kitchen was silent. The forest outside was a wall of green pine and grey mist. "Why did you stay, Amelia?" She looked up at him. The air between them was suddenly thin electric. "Because," she whispered, her heart pounding against her ribs, "because I couldn't imagine a world without you in it." Leonardo's eyes darkened. He reached out, cupping her face in his large, rough hands. His thumbs traced her cheekbones. "I am a dangerous man to love Amelia. I bring war to my doorstep. I have blood on these hands." "I know," she said, leaning into his touch. "But you also have gentleness. I've seen it. If you step across this line," he warned, his voice low and husky, "there is no going back. You become mine, fully, and I protect what is mine with a violence that will scare you." "I'm not scared," she breathed. Leonardo groaned low in his throat and lowered his head. The kiss was not gentle. It was hungry, desperate, a collision of two souls who had been starving for connection. He tasted of coffee and desire. She tasted of hope. He pulled her closer, hissing in pain as his wound stretched but refusing to let go. Amelia wrapped her arms around his neck, careful of his injury, pouring every ounce of her unspoken feelings into the kiss. For a moment, the Mafia, the guns, the Rossi family, it all disappeared. There was only this. The heat of him, the stubble of his beard against her skin, the sound of the heavy security door slamming open downstairs, shattered the moment. Leonardo broke the kiss instantly, his hand flying to the gun taped beneath the counter. He pushed Amelia behind him. "Stay back," he commanded. Sal burst into the room. He looked disheveled, his face bruised, his knuckles bloody. He was dragging a man by the collar of his shirt. It was Marco, the young driver. Marco was weeping, his face a mask of terror. "I found the rat boss," Sal spat, throwing Marco onto the floor. "Found him trying to disable the perimeter sensors." Leonardo stared down at the kid. Marco was barely 20. "Marco," Leonardo said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "I trusted you with my son's life." "I didn't have a choice," Marco sobbed, curling into a ball. "They have my sister, Boss Rossi. He took Julia. He said he'd cut her throat if I didn't give up the location. So you gave him the route to the clinic." "Yes, I'm sorry. I thought they would just scare you. I didn't know they'd use a grenade launcher." "And now..." Leonardo stepped closer, the gun in his hand, heavy and dark. "What are you doing with the sensors, Marco? He told me to lower the shields," Marco whispered, "or Julia dies today." Leonardo went still. Sal went still. "If you were lowering the shields," Leonardo asked slowly, "that means they are already here." As if on cue, a siren wailed the proximity alarm. "Perimeter breach," Sal yelled, pulling his weapon. "Sector 4, the woods." Leonardo grabbed Marco by the shirt, hauling him up. "Where are they coming from?" "Everywhere," Marco wept. "He brought everyone. Rossi is here himself. He wants to finish it." Leonardo shoved Marco toward Sal. "Lock him in the panic room. If we survive, I'll decide if he lives or dies." He turned to Amelia. The tenderness from moments ago was gone, replaced by the hardened resolve of the Don. "Get Leo," he ordered. "Go to the panic room in the basement. Do not open the door for anyone but me or Sal. Do you understand? Leonardo, you can't fight." Amelia grabbed his arm. "Your stitches. "I can fight," he said, checking the magazine of his gun. "And I will, because you are in this house." He kissed her forehead, a hard, quick seal of a promise. "Go." Amelia ran. She sprinted down the hall to the nursery, grabbed Leo from his crib, and clutched the diaper bag. As she ran toward the basement stairs, the first window shattered. Crash! A canister of tear gas rolled across the living room floor, hissing white smoke. Gunfire erupted from the tree line. The glass walls of the house, designed to let nature in, were now shattering inward, exposing them to the wolves. Amelia reached the heavy steel door of the panic room. She threw Leo inside, then turned back. She saw Leonardo taking cover behind the kitchen island, firing 2 rounds into the smoke. She saw Sal overturning a heavy oak table for cover. And then she saw the silhouette of a man stepping through the broken glass doors. He was wearing a long trench coat and smoking a cigar. Dante Rossi. "Leonardo," Rossi's voice boomed, jovial and terrifying. "I heard you were dead. I came to pay my respects." Amelia slammed the panic room door shut and locked the bolts. She was safe. Leo was safe. But the man she loved was upstairs, wounded and outnumbered, locked in a cage of glass with the devil himself. She slid down the wall, clutching her baby, and listened to the war begin above her head. Inside the panic room, the air was recycled and cold. Amelia clutched Leo to her chest, her eyes glued to the monitors. On the screen, the living room was a haze of smoke and flashing gunfire. "Give it up, Ardo." Dante Rossi's voice sneered through the speakers, distorted but dripping with arrogance. "I have 20 men. You're bleeding out. It's over." Leonardo didn't answer. On the grainy black and white feed, Amelia saw him reach for a panel on the wall. The smart home controls. The lights in the house died instantly. On Amelia's screen, the view shifted to a ghostly green infrared. To Dante and his men, the world had vanished into total darkness. To Leonardo, it was a hunting ground. He moved like a phantom. He didn't run away. He ran toward them. One by one, Dante's mercenaries fell neutralized by a shadow they couldn't see. Sal joined the fray from behind an overturned table covering Leonardo's flank. It wasn't a battle. It was a surgical dismantling. Finally, only Dante remained. He stood in the center of the shattered living room, spinning wildly with a flashlight, panic etched on his face. "Face me!" Dante roared at the shadows. "Come out and die like a man!" Leonardo stepped into the beam of light. He was bloodied, his shirt torn, his bandages seeping red, but he stood tall. Dante grinned, leveling his gold-plated Desert Eagle at Leonardo's heart. "Goodbye, King." Click. Dante frowned. He pulled the trigger again. Click. "You count bullets, Dante?" Leonardo asked, walking steadily toward him. "I do. You fired 7 at the ceiling, 1 at the window, and you missed me twice in the alley." "I have a reload." Dante fumbled for a magazine. He was too slow. Leonardo closed the distance and drove his fist into Dante's jaw. The gun clattered away. Dante crumbled, spitting blood. "Wait, Ardo." Dante scrambled backward toward the broken glass doors. "We can make a deal, half the territory." Leonardo stood over the man who had threatened his son. "You don't make deals with ghosts," he said coldly. With a savage kick, Leonardo sent Dante sliding backward over the edge of the cantilevered balcony and into the raging river below. The water swallowed the scream instantly. Silence returned to the glass house. Amelia overrode the panic room locks and sprinted upstairs. Leo strapped to her chest. She found Leonardo slumped on his knees amidst the glass shards, Sal pressing a cloth to his side. Leonardo. She dropped to the floor beside him. "I'm fine," he wheezed, though his face was paper white. He reached out a trembling hand to touch her cheek, then Leo's foot. "Is he safe?" "Yes." Amelia sobbed, tears mixing with the rain blowing in. "We're all safe." Leonardo let out a long exhale, resting his forehead against hers. The war was over. "Then take me home, Amelia. I'm done fighting." 1 year later. The garden of the Moretti estate was no longer a fortress. It was a home. Little Leo, now a sturdy toddler, waddled across the grass chasing a golden retriever puppy. Amelia watched from the patio sipping iced tea. She wore a simple white sundress and a massive diamond ring that caught the sunlight. The glass doors opened, and Leonardo walked out. He moved easily now, though the scar on his side would always remain. He looked younger, the heavy weight of the underworld lifted from his shoulders. "Sal just called," Leonardo said, sitting beside her and taking her hand. "The merger with the unions is complete. The business is legit, Amelia. 100%. No more guns. No more shipments." Amelia smiled, squeezing his hand. "You did it." "We did it," he corrected. He watched his son play a look of profound peace on his face. "I was a dead man, walking before you walked into that nursery. You didn't just feed my son. You saved my soul." "I was just doing my job," she teased softly. "Best mistake I ever made." Leonardo kissed her knuckles. "We never had a real wedding. Just the courthouse papers to keep you safe. But I want the world to know. I want to stand up and make a vow that has nothing to do with silence." He leaned in his dark eyes, full of love. "I want to promise to love you until the last star burns out." Amelia smiled against his lips. The widow, the maid, and the baby, they were a strange, broken mosaic that fit together perfectly. "I think," she whispered, "I'd like that very much." And that is how the Butcher of Brooklyn was tamed not by a bullet, but by the bravery of a woman who had nothing left to lose. Leonardo Moretti learned that the strongest power in the world isn't fear, it's family. I hope you enjoyed this roller coaster of a story. Now I have a question for you. If you were Amelia, would you have stepped out of that armored car to save him? Or would you have stayed hidden? Let me know your answer in the comments below. If you want more incredible, true crime-inspired romances like this, please smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story. Thanks for watching.